For those of you that I haven't met yet, I'm Jennifer Brown-Lerner. I serve as the Deputy Director of the Aspen Institute Sports and Society Program, which is home to Project Play. And my job is many things, but the best part about my job is getting to meet the incredible people that are doing work in community. The Aspen Institute often partners with communities, and it's a real honor, but these people work day to day in communities or lead teams that work day to day in communities. And so rather than read their bios and extol the wonderful accolades that they've received throughout their career, I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves and the work that they lead to kick off our session. Rob, you're first.
Hey everybody, can you hear me? All right. My name is Rob Marcus. I'm the Chief Strategy and Impact Officer at Positive Coaching Alliance. What that essentially means is I drive all of our sports equity work around the country, from coalition building, volunteer coach recruitment, cultural proficiency, systems change work. And I'm happy to be here with you all today.
Hi everyone, my name is Chen Kong-Wick. I like to call myself the Chief of Purpose for Expanded Learning, but in a nutshell, I'm a program manager supporting after-school program. It's a fancy word. We support 84 sites, elementary, middle, and high. And on my moonlighting job, I run the Yes Sports program on behalf of my colleague, Tanya Jackson.
Good morning, Nicholas Williams. I'm currently the Recreation and Community Services Superintendent for the City and County of San Francisco. Been there for almost 3 years, be 3 years in March. Previously served as the Director of Parks, Recreation, and Youth Development in my hometown of Oakland, California for 6 years before moving over to San Francisco. Had the privilege of starting my parks career in Atlanta, worked in parks community service and on the maintenance side in Atlanta, and then had the honor to work in Minneapolis for 4 years as the Superintendent of Recreation. At that time, Minneapolis was the #1 park system in the country. Very wonderful park system, and so had a lot of opportunities to work in a couple different systems, and really have had an opportunity to learn communities and learn people, and so really happy to be here in conversation with you today.
I'm very happy also to be in conversation with you guys today, and I do want to acknowledge the Oakland cheering section over here. It is strong, and I am very appreciative. Even though we are hosting the summit in Berkeley, I feel like our true home is actually Oakland.
You go 4 blocks, you're in Oakland, so.
Okay, so Rob, I'm going to start with you. Starting in Oakland and now in many other communities, you have been leading Youth Sports Equity Task Force. So tell the group a little bit about what they are, and then we're going to say what they were able to accomplish in Oakland and turn it to Chen.
Oh, wonderful. So yeah, to really make it simple, about 5 or 6 years ago, we became really frustrated with the lack of progress, right? Like, you all have been here for what, a day and a half, and I'm sure you're very, very keenly aware of the inequities that exist across the youth sports ecosystem in this country, whether it be here in Oakland or the Bay Area or other cities around the country. And so the traditional ways that we were approaching it weren't solving these problems. So what we decided to do was to really build out a cross-sector coalition here in Oakland that was tasked with examining the barriers to participation that exist that disproportionately impact low-income kids, particularly kids of color. Oftentimes, providers and practitioners work in silos. I think those of you who were here during the last session heard that. You can't solve population-level problems working in silos. And the disparities that we see in youth sports that disproportionately impact marginalized youth, minoritized youth, underrepresented youth, disproportionately impact kids who look like me, who come from communities like ours. So the approach was, like, let's bring or as many providers in the city together as possible. OUSD, back when Nick was at Rec and Park, folks like the Oakland Roots, who are our professional soccer team here locally, the Golden State Warriors, and many others. And let's look at what those problems look like. We partnered with Aspen came in and did a research report, the State of Play report, while we were building our coalition. And we really examined those barriers and try to build action plans. Like, again, we may work in silos, but our kids don't live in silos, right? So how can we collectively come together, create a level of impact, and try to change the ecosystem or reimagine the youth sports ecosystem and create something that is in service of all kids, not just kids who come from families who could pay for the pay-to-play fees or who can hire extra instruction. And so that was the approach, and that was the reason why we built those coalitions. We have one now in Oakland, we have one in San Francisco, we have one down in San Diego, and we're really proud of that work.
And from that coalition, one of the very good ideas was to expose more elementary school students to a diversity of sport. So, Chen, what did you guys cook up?
Yeah. So to add what Rob was saying, I was one of the co-founders of this Oakland Sports Equity founder. And part of it is during COVID, we discovered the disparity. And part of my journey, I didn't sign up to be a sports expert. I signed up to be a youth development worker who stand for equity and the courage to challenge the status quo and operating in joy for myself and all others. When I also saw the data, I was really appalled, particularly coming from right after watching, a documentary of Oakland, the U.S. women's soccer with this level of disparity of income. And then reading the Aspen Institute data of, only 14% of Oakland youth have 60 minutes of physical activity. But for me, that context data didn't move to me. It was from the lens of advocacy. If you stand for equity, what are you willing to do above and beyond than what you're required to do? So for that context, at the time, what made sense for us is that in the youth development field, meaning we have the previous session talks about, the funding source. So in our state of California, our funding source is with after-school money called ACES. Part of the requirement to do ACES is that there's 3 program requirements to provide academic skill building, enrichment, and physical activity. And that particular 30-minute of physical activity, when I saw the Aspen Institute, I knew that if our after-school program manager and staff across 84 sites could just extend from 30 minutes to 60 minutes, we know we could move the dial of 14%. And part of that was coming together to look at system change. And one of the pieces of the system, which I could talk forever, but part of it is addressing the adult mental models. And that's why we came up with the quote, say yes to sports. It's youth development organizations saying yes to sports. It's individuals collectively as a whole system saying yes to sports. Because when you work in a school district, our focus is usually on academic, and PE and after school is usually an afterthought. So part of the mental model that I had to approach on a system level is like, are we willing to say yes to sports, and are you willing to add resources and advocacy towards that? So that was part of the stepping stone, and what we did in year 1 was just build the infrastructure, and I'll pause there to talk about other stuff, but that's the context of why the sports equity work and Yes Sports was birthed.
What a cliffhanger there. What did I do? You all hear that, right? Okay.
I think you just heard that.
Okay, Nick. So, Nick, you came from Oakland, where you were a leading member in the coalition, and now you're in San Francisco.
And a leading member there, too, by the way.
But we're getting to that. But I want to talk about, at the core of a coalition is this idea of collaboration. And as you moved from one community to another, what did it mean to bring that spirit of collaboration to a new community? And how did you advocate for this model in which we could address inequities in youth sport? That was a
Whoa,
lot.
That was like a 5-point question. Like, wow.
Lot.
No. So let me start with kids are kids everywhere. And they all need to play. They all want to feel loved. They all want someone to tell them that they're important. And they all need something to do. And so we realize that the problems that the issues or the situations that we find kids in Oakland are the same that kids are finding in San Francisco and the same that they're finding in Atlanta and other places. And so the collaboration is very important because the voids that we have are so great that we really need experts in each of those areas to work. For instance, so we realize that when budgets get cut in the city, you know, the rec stuff and the park stuff and the libraries seem to be the easiest thing to go, right? And so when we cut budgets and then you end up with soccer coaches teaching after school, and you end up with arts teachers trying to help kids learn how to swing a baseball bat. And so the quality is diminished, and then the program doesn't have as much of the weight or the pull that it has. And so because you have the reduced quality, then you have reduced participation. And then the kids are participating in other city agencies, but just not the ones that we would like them to participate in. So I say all that to say, if we don't work together, we'll have voids. We could have a fantastic library system, but if we don't have some sports, we're going to miss some kids. And we can have a fantastic sports system, but if we're not coloring and drawing and having arts projects, we're going to miss some kids. And if we're not swimming, we're going to miss some kids. And if we're not riding horses and all the different things. And so our kids love to do all of that. And so if we collaborate, we're able to find expert partners in each of those places then to work with our children. How was that?
That was really good because I did give you a lot there, but I think I want to throw this question to the whole panel because Nick made collaboration sound like it was pretty easy. You know, let's just get people talking and working in the same direction, but that's not the reality of where we are. So what do you feel like, particularly as we talk about building collaborations related to youth sports, is the I don't know what the right word is, driver, rationale that brings different people to the table? Because the coalitions have been very diverse in all your communities. Rob, I might make you take it first.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. I think it's such a complex question. And again, this is the collaboration panel, right? This is what we're framing.
Yeah.
I think that, but I'd reframe that though. I think what it's really about is how do we align contributions of the many people in the community towards a shared goal, right? And move the community towards, again, a shared goal with shared frameworks with shared values, right? You have oftentimes funders, for example, who want to fund youth sports. They want to fund, oh, you can serve 20 kids over here. You can serve 50 kids over here. We'll give them kickballs. And that's all great. We want to do that. But what we're trying to do is again, dismantle an inequitable ecosystem that disproportionately hurts, quote unquote, poor, low-income, marginalized children. And how do you do that? You have to get people to share values, right? Because what we did was we just started to define language, right? Like when I say sports equity, does it mean the same thing as when Chen says sports equity? Because if we can't agree on that, we can't move forward collectively. If we can't agree on what we want the city of Oakland to look like from a youth sports perspective, our contributions are going to be disparate, they're going to be different, and they're going to be siloed and fractured all over again. And individual providers may do well, but the children won't do well. And so the first thing you need to do is, again, define language and then build. And a city as diverse as Oakland, but I would argue any city around the country, if you're trying to make that youth sports system fair to all and inclusive for all and serve all, you have to design a system that's in service to the most vulnerable kids in the community. Because if you design in service of the most vulnerable kids, every ship will rise, so to speak. So let's collaborate, let's align on language, let's align on values, let's align on a vision. And once we could agree on that, then we can start attacking the disparities and the root causes that exist. Because again, this needs to be about root cause work. Like, yes, we could do one thing over here that's service level. We can cut the grass at that particular field, and the kids might play that day. But if we can't figure out why the grass isn't being cut every single week, then there's going to be a problem every single week, right? So like, it's about like, what is the root cause of that, and then moving that work forward. So sorry for that long answer.
No, that's a great answer. But Nick, taking that, what does that mean for San Francisco Parks and Recs? And then Chen, what does that mean for Oakland Public Schools?
It means that we have to, while we are trying to think of these sweeping and broad opportunities to fix things, it's a reminder of the essence of what we do here, and it's not widgets, it's not machines, it's not parts, we're not selling things, it's people. And what we understand about people, and we understand it more intricately as we get to know them, that they're all different, right? So I'll give a story that sort of helps to explain what I'm saying. When I was in Oakland, we would do these big events, and we would bring all the kids from all over the city to this event. We realized that sometimes some of the kids that were on the opposite side of the city didn't get to the event until 11 o'clock. Why? Because they had to take the bus, the BART, and they had to walk a couple of miles. There were some kids that got there early because they were close to where we were going. So we realized when we try to solve things, we have to solve it almost at the individual level. We had to send a bus for some kids. Some kids rode public transportation. Other kids walked. And so it wasn't the same situation, but what we were trying to do is make sure everybody got there at the same time. And so I say that to say each team is going to be different. Each community is going to be different. Each family is going to have different needs. And if we're really about this work, I mean, we've got a room full of people that seem to be really about it. But if we're really about it, then we're going to have to know these kids' parents, and we're going to have to talk to them, and we're going to be like, what's your issue? Well, my issue is that this. And then we're going to have to find a way to break that one issue. And it seems like, how can we do that one thing? Well, if we don't do the one thing, we'll never get to the team that we're trying to create, and we'll just continue sort of in this space. And so it's just about removing the barriers. It's about removing the individual barriers that these kids have. They all want to play. They absolutely all want to play, but they have individual barriers, and it's enough of us here to make a difference, but we just have to do it more on an individual level. I'm working with the sports equity in San Francisco now, and I'm on the transportation committee. And so we have these scenarios. There's a basketball game. The kids live in different areas of the city, right? Some of the kids actually need to be picked up, right? Because they have to traverse through areas that they may or may not get there. Other kids live close, let them walk, right? But the goal is for everybody to get there at the same time so that we could practice together before the game. And so we have to think about things like that as well.
Can I say one thing to that? That's about aligning contributions, though, right? Like, if we can't get the transportation department in San Francisco to come to the table and contribute to this effort and know what role they play in the sports system in our city and the value and benefits of participation, that's dead on arrival. So it's about moving all folks in the same direction and defining a vision for what that means, and then the tactics to execute it that address some of those root causes you just laid out.
And Chen, that is exactly what you're doing. So
Yes.
take it away.
Yeah, so on the ground, how it looks like, because it's all nice talking about we all need to collaborate, but in the spirit of collaborations, that requires, integrity. Collaboration moves by the speed of trust. And if trust is not rooted in integrity, it's all lip service, it's all photo op, it's all opportunity. So for us, for our expanded learning office, it was defining not what's the problem that we're trying to serve. So in our after-school landscape, we need to serve all kids. We can't, segregate. We have to offer it to all 49 elementary schools, both hill, slope, or flatland, however you want to call it. So we have to build from a universal lens that students with ability and not ability. So we have to be really strategic in our partnership of who we collaborate. Because once they learn that After School has just released an RFP proposal for sports, everybody now wants to collaborate. So what we were really intentional of, like, we're looking for partners that are not transaction, but transformative, who's willing to go the long haul. And part of the example that we have, we're really fortunate that we have a really amazing collaborator. Because we're in Cal, I want to highlight Taylor. In Oakland Unified School District, we partner with Go Girl, Go Bear, Go Play event, because here's an example that across California and across the state could actually duplicate this. For Oakland, we can't take, create an opportunity of access to sports, field sports, of a variety of sports without the student athletes. So at that event, there's like 50 different sports offering that little kids are being exposed to all at once. All I have to do as a district is build out the compliance piece in order to meet that, grant requirement and then show up for that event. So imagine across California, every university is tied to a school district. So those are key collaborators that we work with. There's also collaborators that are there for the long haul or not there for just the photo op. I just want to make a shout out to Mike from Oakland Roots and Soul. His direction was like, whatever Chen needs in the district, I'll figure out a way to connect, because navigating the school district is as crazy and complex as you guys are trying to navigate inside. So learning how to actually have collaborator who could actually just be a connector, not necessarily bringing in physical resources, but what he did was pretty minor, but it was a game changer for us. Was he had a photographer for his organization, and he sent it to one of our game day and took pictures. And that told the story of what joy looks like in Oakland. And then we have, which also there's certain collaborator that you had to date and court for about 1.5 years, and that's our PE department. Nathan. I mean, at the time, I saw the vision of this is a no-brainer. If we, after school, just aligned school day and after-school physical activity, whole school, whole child, whole day. If we just team up right there, it would be a game changer. But someone had to resist a little bit. But also, which speaks on the key of why we collaborate. The reason is sometimes we collaborate because we want something out of that person or that organization, or we want the students. We got to be able to your success is my success. I had to give him time and be able to dude, I'm here, whatever you need to advance physical activity. So out of that relationship, we're now courting. Hopefully we get to a marriage soon. But what we did was this opportunity where we invited PE teacher to teach in our Saturday sports. Because the narrative that PE teachers was saying that you guys are taking all of our funding away, why are you hiring these sports provider coming to our school? So we had to draw the PE teacher to the table and be another collaborator. And then create the vision. So every PE teacher that actually teach in our Saturday is also getting exposed to what our Saturday sports is about, and then we're also sending our PE teacher to a conference. So it's when you're a collaborator, what are you bringing to the table? It's not just money, it's also resources and opportunity and connections. I could say more, but I'll stop there.
You can say more, it's okay. Listen, I think you have started to, but I want you to really articulate and celebrate the successes that you've had right now and what they've meant for the work going forward.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Chen's being too humble. I really want to double tap on something that she noted, but maybe provide a little bit of additional context. So when we came out of our, after we've developed what we call a sports equity agenda for the city of Oakland, that was co-created, but I don't know, you can't hear me? Hannah will always tell me when I'm not doing the right things. Is that better, Hannah? All right. So when we created that sports equity agenda, or co-created it with, 40 partners from across the city, one of the biggest areas or equity gaps or opportunity gaps, or however you want to frame it, that we noticed, right? Thanks in part, a huge shout out to Aspen for providing the data. When we did our systems change work and we started to create these action plans, Chen was the first to jump up and say, hey, we don't have any free youth sports opportunities in this city for kids at that K to 5 age range. It's all pay to play. You maybe have a few things here and there, but there's no availability in terms of access. So if kids aren't playing basketball or soccer or tennis or whatever, by the 6th grade, are they going to play in 7th, 8th, 9th, and so forth and so on? And that's not going to happen, or it's highly unlikely to happen. So what the district did through Chen's leadership and Martha's leadership was identify funding, a pot of funding, and create this all-new elementary school sports program that was accessible to thousands of kids across our city. That's collective impact work. That's collective action. And now, when you step back and you look at it, right, what is the impact of that when we talk about, a lot of people will stand up and talk about how do we reimagine a system? How do we change a system? This work has actually happened, and it's, I think, a model for the rest of the country, definitely across the state of California, because they took that, what was it, $2 million initially, and set up a process where youth sports organizations are now tapping into that money and providing free and affordable youth sports programs. Colin from America Scores is here. I see a few other folks who tapped into that money to provide sustainable opportunities for kids, period. And so I just wanted to double tap on that and give you the credit you deserve.
And tell us how you're celebrating your successes now. I mean, I know it has been a lot of work for you and your team, but you're at a point in which you can step back and reflect on the successes that you've had.
It's hard for me to celebrate because the gap is so high and the need is so big. I do this work not because I feel like it, and most people usually tell me that, oh gosh, Chen, you're so passionate. I disagree with that statement. It's not about passion, because passion sometimes fiddle out when it gets difficult. It's more like a social responsibility, given this political climate. So for some people, it's my way of spreading joy across Oakland, and hopefully I could see it across California, given that there's a lot of hate and divisions. What we're doing in Oakland with the Yes Sports, think about 49 different elementary schools with different social economic incomes and backgrounds coming together every Saturday to play. It's an equal playing field. And to me, that celebration, that part of my question as a leader is, what kind of ancestor am I being right now during this political climate? Instead of waiting for I'll do it when it's right, when it feels good. Doing this collaboration is not easy. There's many moments who are close to me who knows that there's many moments I want to quit. But part of it is knowing the gap, I can't. And part of it is we need to all come together and collaborate for that common goal and that problem that we're trying to solve. And so I do find moments of celebrations, but the work of activism is still alive and real, because I have to hold that baton, because there's different folks before me that stood and imagine if they gave up. So I'm hoping to collaborate with many more of you who are like-minded, who are basically like, if we're having to create the Bill of Rights to play, then that means how are we holding different roles to advance this work?
I'll jump in. It's a good segue. This work requires not only your level of passion and transparency, but it requires us to be vulnerable, because if you think about it, we're all not gifted in everything. And so you have to work as hard as you can in what you have, and then open up your mouth and say, hey, I've got these kids over here. We need help with this. Can you help with this? We've got this. Can you help us with this? That way, it not only it raises the quality of what you're doing, because part of the issue is that if what we're doing is low quality, nobody wants that, right? So the goal is always high quality. And then you would be surprised of people that want to help, they just don't know that you need them. And the vulnerability to say, hey, we need help over here. We've been able to do a bunch of fundraising from that, and other people are coming to the table. We were in Oakland, and we were trying to figure out different ways to keep the kids busy, and it's not always just rolling basketballs out, right? Kids want to do different things, and so we was like, we need help. And Kevin came over from Oakland lacrosse, and before you know it, we've got lacrosse at every single rec center in Oakland, right? We had people from Skate Like a Girl, right? We had skating at every single center. We were doing, before basketball practice, we would do little science experiments with the kids. So now you got the whole basketball team out in the park with magnifying glasses looking for bugs and whatnot. And so I say all that to say it's very passionate work because it's not widgets. But with that, you just got to raise your hand sometime and say, we need help. These kids need this. These kids need that. And there are way more good people than bad. There are way more people that want to help us than people that don't. And there are way more great community leaders, mom and pops around community that will come in and tell us exactly what we need to do. But it requires us to be vulnerable and transparent. In San Francisco, we run some of the biggest programs. I've got almost 5,000 kids playing softball and baseball. I've got a 4,000 kid league, basketball league with almost 1,500 girls playing in this league. So we're really happy about this. So we've got all these big numbers, but we weren't seeing everybody. So we have a division called Neighborhood Services. And so we go into the homes, we go into these communities, and sometimes they're not ready to come over into the leagues that we have, and so we just create little leagues there, right? What do you have here? There's one goal out here. So we're gonna start at 303, and you get it going good, then you gain the trust, and then you can put them on a van and take them over to the bigger league. And so don't be afraid of small beginnings, and don't be afraid to say, hey, we need some help. Was that even a question?
No, that was perfect. And you asked folks to raise their hand, and I think I'm going to do the same and open it up to some audience Q&A. And there is a mic, and you must ask your question into the microphone. We are recording, and we want to capture what you have to say. And we can't have every question from Oakland, even though I think more than 50% of the room is Oakland.
Hi, thank you so much for this panel. My name is Amber Stone. I'm a representative of UNICEF USA. And I'm really curious if you could share more, because the reason why we're all here doing what we do is it's for the kids, it's for the youth who are participating. Could you speak to how you, in your individual roles and organizations, see youth as valuable collaborators in kind of co-designing what the programming and the solutions and influencing the outcomes of ultimately what is for them to participate in? Because we all know that you have a right to participate in the decisions and the programs that affect them. Thank you.
Great question. Now I'm going to take the prerogative of the moderator to say, at least for Oakland, because we were doing a state of play report and we center youth voices in that report, we were able to constantly share that data with the sports equity task force, so that even though young people might not have been sitting at the table, we were bringing that information to them, including through our state of play youth survey, which asked them their sport preferences, the rationale for participation in sport, and the relationship with adults in the context of sport.
Yeah, I mean, I think you answered the question. I would just say,
I shouldn't have.
No, to even kind of zoom out a little bit, right? Like, how are we working on behalf of children, youth, and families, right? And it's all about community at the end of the day. You have to work with and through communities. Personally, I reject any form of saviorism, right? So how you show up to a community, You have to ask, you have to listen, and then you have to navigate that community to see how you can show up and be additive. You just can't show up and say, this is what we want to do. We know everything. You know nothing, right? People have agency. You have to respect the lived experience and the knowledge, right? And you have to practice a level of cultural humility when you do this work. And so it's all about listening to children, families, and communities.
Have anything to add? I have a question here. Oh, do you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, we're expanded learning, we're after school, we're from the youth development field. So putting youth and then getting youth input and design and implementation is part of our goal, but part of it is in order to do that, to truly work with young people and to prepare young people to actually lead and facilitate and implement, that requires resource. That requires adult being able to actually, work alongside and give them the tools, or else we're setting them up, or we're treating youth as a tokenizing, like, oh yeah, I did youth leadership. So one of the things that we're really careful of doing it is identifying who are the key collaborator that specialize in youth leadership. And you gotta pace it in such a way, or else we're doing harm and bringing young people as a decoration. There's an article called Ladder of Youth Engagement by Adam Fletcher, where we're being mindful of how we bring youth. One of the example that we're doing right now in part of year 3 is bringing young people, elementary school kids that are adorable, is introducing Yes Sports to students with disability. Now, pulling together a youth focus group and a leadership, that requires a full-time person to engage this. I have Monday through Friday job and then Saturday sports. So what we kind of did as far as a small ladder up to youth engagement is during Saturday, we're constantly asking the kids with learning differences is how they are engaging and involving in the Saturday sports, giving us feedback to develop what we call our FLIP program, Friends Learning Inclusive Play. Is instead of segregating, the sports with students with disability in one pocket and then, the general population, we're infusing because we want different kids learning alongside with each other. So that's one small move. Bear in mind, we're in year 2, about to finish year 3 of our program. Our goal is to definitely have young people lead it, but we need organization who are operating high quality youth engagement piece.
All right, next.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Tamara.
Sort of speaking about collaboration. So one of the
You have to tell us who you are.
Colin Schmidt, America Scores. We're a provider of sports programs, and we sort of sit in between the school district and Rec and Park in some ways, running school-based programming, but then bringing teams and communities to Rec and Park facilities. And it is a continuous source of frustration of the lack of collaboration between the school district and the Rec and Park department. And just because again, we everybody's got their own leagues, their own facilities, but oftentimes there's a real big silo between those two. Just as an example that I learned today is in Oakland, with Oakland Unified, ELOP, we built a field on a playground in East Oakland to be able to have space for our game days. And we knew this wasn't going to be a full solution because it was smaller than a regular place. But right next door is a rec center. And I just learned that we can't use the rec center. So we're squeezing all the teams and all the kids onto a nice field, but a small field. San Francisco, same thing. We've built 25 fields on public schoolyards, which were asphalt. Now they have a sports field. But it's because we can't get access. We can't afford access to the public rec and parks. So anyways, it's clearly a point of frustration, and we talk about collaboration, but it's tangible. Like, why are we shoving all these kids in this tiny little space when we have, when we do have grass and open space, available?
Yeah, I mean, Colin, I love that. I didn't hear a question, buddy, but I heard a comment. But yeah, I mean, I think I don't work for Rec and Park. Nick, you work for Rec and Park, but I will say that here in Oakland, for example, again, we recalled a mayor. We turned over 5 district seats. It's tough. Like it's tough when you're navigating city agencies. But I mean, Nick, you actually work for the city. I'll defer to you on that.
Yeah, I don't have a public answer for that, but I'd love to chit chat with you maybe after.
All right, next question.
I'm Aaron Locks from the National Academy of Athletics, and we have National Parks and Rec in the room, just so you guys know. And I was going to ask a very similar question, but I'm curious because it seems that the collaboration between city, municipalities, and schools has broken down a little bit. And we talked earlier, of course, that it's amazing how much can be accomplished when no one cares who gets the credit, right? And everybody in this room realizes that athletics and sports is so, so very important. Do you have any insights from the school districts of ways that the NRPA or Parks and Rec folks, or those of us that play in both space, can help to advocate, collaborate, and work together? Because I do believe that the best communities that we serve throughout the nation have a strong school district, strong parks and recreation, and when they work together, amazing happens.
How about this? I'm going to ask Chen to talk a little bit about your relationship with the Parks Department, and Nick to talk a little bit about your relationship with the school district.
This is grounded on the topic of why we're here, is to collaborate. Sometimes, as in a relationship, not everybody wants to date with you, right? And you got to be okay with it.
That's a great point.
I mean, I courted Nathan for a year and a half. And I'm saying this in a funny joke because I have to, because navigating that political landscape is all about personality and relationship. And then you got to be patient, because part of it is, this is why part of my core value is the courage to challenge the status quo. You got to be able, if somebody tells me no all the time, I would be giving up already. So that's why I said yes. And so it's just, the no now is not the no later, right? It's just a matter of like, how do we actually pull together collectively as a body, as a unit? To me, the answer is pretty clear. ELOP funding is ELOP. Someone was really particular on the naming. So it stands for Expanded Learning Opportunity Program Funding. It's through the state. If the first partner, or Gavin Newsom, just basically like across California, district and park, you work together. I will actually put in some seed money or some private funder of like, you know what, I will be the convener, positive coaching, to actually bring these two entities together and then figure out what is the root cause and the issue. It's just a matter of creating some system strategy that allow folks to come together and have conversation. It's just being able to actually problem solve exactly because every city is gonna look really different. And then for us is, we try to do a workaround in some ways, because if we wait for everybody to tell us no and close the door, we wouldn't be doing this work right now, because part of it is our why is great. And there's some urgency, why we wanted, you don't give up on a relationship. So to me, Oakland Parks and Rec, I hear your frustration, Colin. It's a no at this moment. It's just a matter of when.
Just very briefly, I think we need to ground ourselves in the fact that everybody is struggling. And so oftentimes when we go to organizations and say we want to collaborate, we really should go and say, how can I help you? And so from that standpoint, you can say, well, I need help with this, I need help with this. Hey, great, we're experts at that. You know what we need help with this. And sometimes it goes back to that vulnerability, right, and transparency. All of these agencies are struggling. Bad budgets are everywhere. Reduced enrollment, right? And so, it has even something to do with the way that we begin to label the programs, because if it's labeled that is for poor people, even if I'm poor, I don't want to go there, right? So it's all of these different things that we have to do. But I think it just goes back to having an understanding of the organization that you want to collaborate with. What are they struggling with? And so a lot of people are saying, hey, you need to do this, you need to do this, let's collaborate, which really means I need some funding, when we really should go and say, you know, what can I help you with? I see you struggling with PE. We've got this recreation center across the street. I've got 3 people here who are able, certified. We're gonna come, let's get a small arrangement. You'll send your kids over here, right? And you start like that. The next thing you know, that you've got a partnership that has grown. But often it starts with, how can I help you?
Yeah, I have something real quick to add, and not to make this too academic of a discussion, but when you think about like what holds inequities in place, right? It's the things that are below the surface that you can't see. And we often struggle with, one, relationships and connections. That's a condition that holds inequities in place. If you don't have relationships and connections, it's difficult to create change. I'll give you a real quick, or have a real quick story for you. A few weeks ago, I was in LA County, and they have an initiative there called community school parks. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of them, where the Rec and Park Department there they don't have enough park space. But schools sit vacant oftentimes on weekends and sometimes after schools. But they can't get it off the ground. So I was in a room with maybe 20 leaders, maybe 5 to 10 from Rec and Park, 5 to 10 from the school district. And what holds these things up are the relationships and connections, and oftentimes the power dynamics that exist. If a kid, if somebody comes to the school and they fall down on a crack, who has the liability there, right? The lawyers get into a room, and if there are any lawyers, I apologize in advance, but they ruin everything, right? And so it takes, with all due respect, but it takes a concerted effort. Like, this is a continuum. This isn't this type of work is ongoing. Like we did a great job. Nick abandoned us and went across the city and left Rec and Park.
We are all part of the Bay.
Left Rec and Park, but now we work with Nick, obviously, on our San Francisco coalition. But when Nick came, when we first started the coalition in Oakland, I think that might have been the first time you two met each other. Their offices were 100 yards apart.
He
right?
left me.
Right? So, I mean, we and then somebody leaves, Nick takes the job across the bridge, and then you start over. It's a process. You have to go through a process because it's about the children, right? It's not the child's fault that they can't access fields. It's not the child's fault that there aren't enough coaches. It's not the child's fault that youth sports cost so much money. So ground the work in the children and understand that it's a continual process, and we have to show up for it every single day so kids get what they need.
I'll give you an example of relentless collaborations, and it's all about relationship. So, you know, Colin speaks of one location that Yes Sports is at. Another location, so in Yes Sports, at any given time, there's usually 4 or 5 sites that we run programming. And one of the sites is one of the providers, our sports provider's relationship. He's all like, Chen, I think I know who I need to talk to from Parks and Rec. So there was out of relationship, phone call, whatever that individual had to do, we got the permit to actually run a sports program, baseball. But that's half of the battle. The field is dirty, there's garbage. So this sports provider took 9 hours out of their own individual time instead of invoicing us, actually bring his entire crew, mow the lawn, pick up 9 garbage bags of garbage. So, I mean, this is where, when I say we're looking for collaborators that transform, to me, that really warms my heart because I have enough to handle, but they came to the table to say, this is what we can do because we have the relationship. And that, you know, they had to come back and clean right before the event kicks off, but it was like-minded individuals that's willing to come together for the greater good, because sometimes the system is pretty hard and difficult to navigate.
Is there a question? Oh, right back here, and then we'll go here, and those will be, we'll cut it off of that, 'cause I've gone way over.
Really? Oh, okay.
What's going on, everyone? I'm Javon. I'm from USA Ultimate, and my question to the panel is, so right now, in my role, like USA Ultimate, since everything has happened with the current administration around diversity, equity, inclusion, and being an organization that's been standing firm in everything that we put in place prior to the pandemic, prior to everything that happened in 2020, we're finding an increase in interest in our sport, and we're finding an increase in people wanting to invest. And also with some other recent achievements through Ultimate, like we're seeing that increase. I appreciate the statement around saying that polite no, because being a national governing body, we have to do that. But now my question to y'all is, to the people that we're saying yes to and to the organizations that we're saying yes to, how can we get creative in collecting their data? Because for me, working both as a DEI and a youth programs manager, I'm telling my programs on the ground, like, hey, please be, like, I'm having them go through certain trainings in regards to working with certain communities, having knowledge, but I also want them to be knowledgeable of how to collect specific data. So can you please share with me, like, what data points you're collecting about your participants and how we might be able to use those, and then share those with our stakeholders as well as with the programs that we're partnering with?
Oh, I have thoughts.
My bad, sorry.
Go.
I have thoughts. I don't do political work. Let me just get that on the record. This is such a in my lifetime, right, doing this work, this equity-based work, there's never been a more consequential time to try to address these issues. Not only here, we're fortunate in Oakland because we have a certain culture, the Bay Area, even California. But there's never been a more consequential time to try to navigate, in a difficult time to try to navigate. And you have to lean into what your core values are, right? And move from there. That would be like my very first level of advice. But also, whether you want to call them equity gaps, you want to call them opportunity gaps, I think our success gaps, it doesn't necessarily make a difference. But you can't identify them if you don't have data. You can't. Like, you don't know where the problems lie if you can't look at what the facts are. Like, how do you know if you're not serving, if for example, let's just say 20% of the kids who play Ultimate Impact or Ultimate Frisbee are girls. But if you're not collecting, you know, their gender or their sex, so forth and so on, you won't know that. So how do you, and then you disaggregate it by race, et cetera. How do you know that if you can't identify the problem? You're eyeballing it at that point. Like, what gets measured gets done. And so, like, looking at basic demographic data, race, gender, et cetera, but then you have to disaggregate data. Sometimes, in youth sports, in my opinion, we struggle in collecting data, right? In understanding what the population level data looks like, what the participation rates look like. You know, thank you for all the work that you all do around that, right? But like, you go to an individual organization, they might tell you we had 50 kids participate last school year, right? That, which is great, but if you can't break that down and look at it, you can't solve those problems. If you don't know that 70% of your kids are coming from low-income communities, quote-unquote low-income communities, like, how do you build the community engagement skills and the cultural proficiency skills to navigate that community? So, like, if I were to give any advice for whatever it's worth, right, basic demographic data, determine what's important to you, and then lean into your values to try to drive that forward. But I have a lot of thoughts, but I'm happy to talk to you offline about it. But I don't want to take up all the day.
Either one of you want to talk about your data collection?
I'll just say I had a mentor and we were talking about the data thing, and he's like, people will share with you if you share with them, right? So your participants will give you all the data that you need as long as you provide them with safety, possibly some food security, a safe place to play, and they trust you. You will begin to be able to get the data, and as you talk to them about it, you say, I'm collecting this so that we can gather more resources, and I'll protect this data with my life if I have to, so that you sharing it with me doesn't become dangerous for you.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right, we're gonna let this be the last question.
Thank you. My name is Diane No. I'm actually representing 6 organizations here today. One of them is actually UCSF, and I know in Oakland, UCSF Benioff Children's Hospital is a huge presence here. Have you guys collaborated especially for the youth with disabilities community? And I'm excited to partner with you, Chen, on that after this. But did you approach them in terms of, because a lot of times families, there's fear that their children's, safety, all those things. Have they been a partner that you've saw? And then the other one is a faith-based organization. So there's a lot of churches doing a lot for the community in Oakland. My church has an amazing tutoring program with the Martin Luther King Elementary School. So I'm just wondering if you've also expanded your collaborators to those communities.
We have a pastor on stage with us right now. Go ahead. You want to talk about the SPED program or the plans for SPED?
Yeah, there's 3 questions that you just asked, and I'll make sure I answer. So in regards to partnering with the medical industry, so we have this event called, our activation event. It's our kickoff to our Yes Sports. It's available for elementary and middle school kids, and where we invite Kaiser Doctor to the event and do, for middle school, is very important that they have health screening. So the medical doctor is there to do the health screening right there and then, and that's one of the barriers. And we also have tables available that actually do health screening and that kind of stuff. Also begin to introduce to young people of the importance of movement. But part of it is, as you know, it's also very political of who are the medical field who has great partnership with the district. So you also have to navigate that political landscape as well too. So in regards to the SPED question, we're building it out right at this moment. So check out our year 3 report. But addressing students with disability, this is where the timing of a collaborator is very key. When I began to introduce the part of the Oakland sports equity work, I was really clear that when I designed the program, it was through a universal lens of just like how we built ramps, right? It's not just for individuals with wheelchair, but folks who could benefit from the wheelchair, from the ramps. Part of it is because of pace and resource, I had to scaffold it over time in order to build the system properly. And I think sometimes when we say no, some audience sometimes is it's a no directly towards them. It's just when you build things, it needs time to what we call it prototyping. We're constantly testing and prototyping in regards to broken down in what are we launching in the fall, our fall sports, and how are we shifting and modifying it in the spring. And the other quality indicators that we do is we have PE teachers that really know the instructions of the day-to-day operation. So we use them as far as in our site visits to our sports provider to look at quality. And part of it is, it really frustrates me because, again, I'm Asian woman who don't play sports, but I do stand for equity, and I'll be relentless standing for that piece. To me, what baffled me of if sports has been around for God knows how long, why can't we have a universal standard? And this is where our partnership with the Oakland Roots, with Mike, raise your hand, please. He has
Don't be
been,
shy, Mike.
yeah, he has been such a great ally for me in particular, just whatever I needed. And one of the issues that we needed was to see how do we look at quality standard across soccer. And to me, it was wait, everybody's doing something different? Why can't we just have a universal standard by 5th grade? If you participate in youth soccer, this is what I should be getting because it's preparing them for middle school soccer. So one of the work that he did, that he took the initiative himself, wrote a grant and built a project where any coaches that goes through the academy has a grassroots license. So we need, as far as across, of what are the universal standard for youth engagement? Because we all oh yeah, I've been promoting underwater basket weaving sports. Just because I promote it, that doesn't mean I need a certification in that industry in order to ensure standard and quality and scaling. Because some folks have a great idea and they want to collaborate with ES Sports, but part of it is not just quality, but how do you scale it? So that's my data.
One more thing, UCSF, we didn't have Jen here in Aspen to help us do our landscape analysis for the coalition in San Francisco. So we work with interns, I forget which department, Shannon, you may know. The PRIME program, shout out to our San Francisco Sports Equity Coalition director. We work with the PRIME program at UCSF to help us do landscape analysis work to identify the gaps and opportunities that exist across San Francisco. So yeah. Oh yeah, UCSF, we work with them in San Francisco, but not so much in Oakland. Yeah. Absolutely.
Let me just add one thing. You talked about who's your community. Wherever you can walk, that's your community. There was a situation, we had a car mechanic shop across from one of the parks, and we took the kids over there just for a walking field trip. Do you know that mechanic comes over every Tuesday and teaches them kids how to do brakes and how to change tires and whatnot? So you build community by just being vulnerable and walking around. If you find a church near your recreation center or near your place, them church mothers will fry so much chicken for them kids and be grandmothers and do so many other things. And so you have to go out, be vulnerable, and find people around, and then you create from what you have.
So I know that there are many other questions, and there is only about 10 minutes left in this session. And we wanted to try really hard in this session to build community. So what I'm going to ask you to do is turn to the person sitting next to you and share with them one thing that you think you could collaborate, one person or organization you could collaborate with when you turn home after you've been inspired by this incredible panel. And if you want to go to lunch early, I understand, but I hope you turn to the person next to you. All right, well, I hate to stop the collaboration. Okay, you are
Clap
so
once if you
good
hear
at
my
the
voice.
yeah.
Clap twice if you hear my voice. Clap 3 times if you hear my voice.
All I'm going to say is that at the beginning, when we all took our seats and I sort of pulled the microphone to my mouth, you guys were like instantaneously quiet. But when we released you to talk to everybody else and tried to call you back, there was no interest in closing out this panel, which means that this group of people 100% did their job of inspiring you from the collaboration that is happening across the entire Bay. Got to include your new home now. Yeah. That can be a place in which we can all learn from. So with that, I'm going to ask you each to share what collaboration you are most proud of in any aspect of your life. No one wants to go first?
Oh, that's such a hard question. Like, if the camera wasn't here, I'd say something work-related. But I am a parent, so like, I mean, this might be seen, so I think the collaboration, obviously, with my children, but let's set that aside. I think, like building these coalitions now, across the state of California, obviously starting here in Oakland, where I'm from, has been such a joy, right? Because getting folks to move towards a collective goal is extremely difficult work, and being able to work with folks, again, like I think the 49ers are here, the Roots are here, like working with all these partners across the state, grassroots, Tamara with Greenway, and all the partners that we have that show up on behalf of children, youth, and families, and getting them to center that, and then moving that work forward collectively has been tremendously inspiring.
I hesitated because I have many collaborators, and I really appreciate all of them. I think for me is our immediate space that we occupy, that we have influence, and I just appreciate my team, Martha, Robert, my chief of operation, Tanya, and Nathan, my champion of PE, and Layla, who's on Zoom. I think part of it is when we try to do this work, it's our immediate influence that we have to like engage in, and I really appreciate for them to just, it's a little bit corny saying yes to sports. Because out of those advocacy is those small wins when things get difficult on the day-to-day operation. It's them stepping in on the behalf of kids, and I really appreciate it. Thank you for showing up to Project Play. They didn't, I arm wrestled them a little bit and convinced them, but I think part of it is this idea of like collective journey of learning together, and that journey is how you get to the collective impact, because yeah, you can't do this work alone.
Great segue. I'll say the best thing about this is the individual connections. And so meet somebody you don't know, grab their number, get their phone number, call them out of the blue one day and be like, I hope you're having a nice day. Don't give up on the work. We need you here. And so it's just the individual connections and the ability to meet somebody like-minded that's in the same type of struggle. So meet somebody and become a lifelong friend.
Text me first, though.
Well, I want to thank Robert, Chen, and Nick for a really excellent conversation. I also want to put a shout out to the folks that were willing to be table discussants, and I did not call on you because we were having such a great conversation out here. I have 2 announcements. First, please go in the app, go to this session, fill out the short survey. It's so helpful to us. And second, I am dismissing you to lunch in the tent. I also believe that you can pick up your printed ticket for the baseball game in the tent if you have registered and plan to go tonight. Thank you. Please give these folks another round of applause.